Hey, today we have news on buffs, the fixing of Bile issues, the CCO discusses flamethrower nerf, and charger hitbox. They've got plans to introduce a patch at some point, a big patch by the way, and there's a lot more we'll be discussing. If you'd like to show your support, please hit the like button below, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're starting with the developer's explanation of why the flamethrower is no longer effective after the previous hotfix. If you've been away for a while, you might be out of the loop on what's going on with the chargers, so let me quickly break it down. The flamethrower was nerfed with the Escalation of Freedom update, then about a week later a hotfix was released that rendered it practically useless by completely changing the hitbox on the charger, no kidding. But it's fair to say that even before the hotfix, the flamethrower wasn't that effective, but it could still take out a charger. Now with that said, the developers have provided a detailed explanation of what went wrong. The developers and CCO Mr. Pilistad responded to a player explaining why the flamethrower's visual effects were altered and also discussed the changes to the charger's hitbox. So Pilistad wrote, "Hey, yeah, so the flames had the potential to spawn inside objects and register for damage. So for instance, flames against the Hulk and hit the rear vents or hit damage zones that should not be hittable when you attack it from the front or shoot through walls for that matter." We're going to pause for just a moment here. I find it absolutely astonishing that the flamethrower was actually behaving that way the whole entire time. I'm curious if they could have reverted the visual effects from, before the Escalation of Freedom patch, but prevent the flames from reaching inside the Hulk. They should have fixed that bug first, right? That seems feasible. Unless they can't do that without altering the effects completely. So if that's the case, I'm curious about how they'll adjust the fire effects now to maintain both visual appeal and restore the weapon's original power. Alrighty, now that we have a clue about what went wrong with the visual effects, what about the chargers? A Reddit member believes that the charger's leg mesh is a bit oversized. The developer explained that this change was made to address desync issues. Following this, the CCO continued to say, "The change with the charger had to do with the hitbox of the weak points getting desynced and protrude beyond the armored parts. Therefore, the solution was to make it more predictable, but the visual fidelity did not hold up." What I want to know is if that's why we can't hit the back end of the charger. The big old squishy orange part? Maybe that's why, because the leg mesh is in the way. This could be a possibility, and I wouldn't be surprised if, we see a change mentioned in the patch notes like, hey, we fixed the leg mesh or whatever. Also, by the way, I believe it might be a little while before we see the flamethrower issue resolved. Maybe even the charger as well. The reason for this is mainly based on what the CCO, Mr. Pilistad, said. To conclude his statement, Pilistad wrote, "We are going to resolve these issues, but we need to do it properly, making everything feel better and play better, not trading one for the other." And as you can see, they're planning to do it the right way, which to me suggests it might be a little while before we actually see this patch, at least for those specific issues. I have a feeling that once this update is live, the community will be absolutely thrilled, provided everything is done correctly. The last thing we all want is another patch riddled with bugs that could worsen things. I understand some might see this as pessimism, but the last few patches have indeed raised concerns, especially with the persisting crashing issues. Since we're discussing bugs and issues following the recent patches, the CCO explained that the team has technical debt. This occurs, by the way, when a studio opts for quick fixes or patches to meet immediate deadlines, or basically to make features functional rather than investing time into more robust long-term solutions. He also talked about how it's tough because the people who originally built the system's code have left the company. So right here, this is what he had to say. "I 100% agree with tech debt. It is a constant challenge for the engineers where we have to choose between working on long-standing issues or new features, which is where we fail to deliver new content at the appropriate quality. The team being tired for a long development has been challenging." So yeah, this right here is why we're not seeing new content right away. The studio needs to sort out some existing problems first, and these issues might have popped up because they took some shortcuts when making the game, or maybe with the last few updates. Now, as you can see, obviously Arrowhead is aware they're dealing with technical debt, which again happens when you go over quick patches instead of taking the time for more solid long-term fixes. This might explain why things like the social menu are glitchy or why the game keeps crashing. It's a tough situation, yeah. Honestly, it is. But at the same time, it's kind of their own doing. We're now going to continue with the same post. Pilistad went on to say, The systematic approach to game design to be able to get emergent moments means that it takes longer for us to onboard new engineers with over 200 systems that all need to interact and has lots of details per system. And mistakes happen as some who wrote the original systems are no longer with the studio, meaning nuances can bite us in the behind. Yeah, that right there, it's pretty wild. I'm not too sure if the developers left before or after the game's release. Either way, it's clear that their departure has slowed down the coding work, specifically on the game's system, just as the CCO pointed out. This right here, this makes sense as to why progress has been so sluggish recently. You know, I don't really feel bad for Arrowhead as a company, but I do feel for the developers. They're not the ones making the decisions. I'm sure they pitched ideas and solutions, but in the end, it's Arrowhead's leadership that calls the shots. The developers are just the ones on the front lines facing all the criticism, while the ones truly responsible are just watching from behind the scenes. Anyway, to wrap up, the CCO also talked about how the developers are feeling the pressure and they're going to do better with QA. Here near the end, he mentioned, "We are improving this, but as you can see, this combined with the demands on the team from appreciation that the game has found as well as our ambition level is straining us. Also, we need to do better with our QA processes." Since he brought up QA, I've got to point out that QA has really been a big issue for Helldivers 2 lately. It seems like the game isn't getting tested enough. However, it's been stated by the community manager Twinbeard that Arrowhead is committed to enhancing their testing efforts both from outside and within the company. Now, will this make a big difference? It's tough to predict, but holding on to hope that the game will make a turnaround is, honestly, it's quite difficult in my opinion. If you watch my videos or have watched them quite often, you know I usually keep a positive outlook on Arrowhead, and you know what's ahead for them. But as time went on, it's becoming harder to keep the same attitude. Moving on to leaks, if you're not a big fan of spoilers, I recommend checking the timestamps below to skip ahead. Now, regarding the Iron Fleet Automatons, we have some information on them. Currently, there isn't much available except for an image showcasing their design, which was directly sourced from Ironsides on X. Here you can see there's 3 distinct chrome-plated bots. Now, these chrome versions are reportedly a sub-faction within the Automatons, essentially a faction within a faction. I suspect they're more so an elite squad for the bots, at least that's what it appears to be, at least to me anyways. Now, whether or not the chrome makes them stronger, I couldn't tell you that, but I'd like to believe it does. Let's say if the Iron Fleets can absorb more damage and withstand additional hits, this could be a great idea as long as they don't become too much of a bullet sponge. Also, with the Iron Fleet, if you guys did not know this, you can actually see them on the illegal broadcast as well, so definitely check that out next time. Last but not least, there's a leak about a future in-game presidential election, and I'll be honest, I don't think this will happen soon or at all because you know how the current state of the game is, but when or if it does happen, there will be some presidential stratagems you can get when the president is chosen at some point. Now, these don't take up any of your stratagem slots, by the way, but right here you can see the first one for medical supplies. There will also be medic backpack, jump pack backpack, health pack rack, rocket sentry, patriot exosuit, ammo cache, and that's pretty much it. So with that being said, these are all the leaks I have to showcase here, and just remember, these are just ideas basically, and they could change. But let's say it's going to happen, right? Let's say they plan on doing this, and we're going to receive a Patriot exosuit. I wonder what that's going to be. Is it going to be a Patriot suit with a bunch of rockets on it? And I know we already have one, but maybe this would be like a step-up version, or maybe the exosuit would have a bunch of machine guns. Who knows? But it sounds pretty cool. Maybe a jetpack. That would be awesome. But yeah, this right here, this is what we know so far. I would like to know your opinions, your comments about this down below in the comments. Next, the community manager answered a question about whether or not the developers have any plans with their requisition slips, and how long will we have to wait for the next major update. The response, this person got back that they have a bunch of alternatives that they are being looked into, but here's the full response. Various alternatives for surplus resources are being looked into. Major patch later, no official ETA for that. Minor patch may arrive before that. Ragdolling is being nerfed in several instances. Hopefully this means we can buy things like XP boosters or upgrade our weapons. It would be really cool if we could also get some new colors with those slips. I'm not entirely sure what else they could use slips for. Perhaps they could, make it so that we could buy samples or trade samples to get more slips. Anyway, that's something I'd like to see. Also, regarding the ragdolling, I'd say it's been improved a lot with the Impaler. although you can still get launched quite high. We'll see if that improves over time. And as for the release date for the patch, the developers do not have a date for us. However, they do have a date in mind internally, as Twinbeard mentioned in this post. Now, the good news is that the Arrowhead devs plan to buff a few weapons. When asked by a player if there were any plans to buff anything in the next big update, Twinbeard confirmed it, saying, in the next big one, absolutely there might be a smaller patches before that, so caveat for that. So we can see that the big update will include several buffs. When this happens, I'd like to see the buffs for the Scythe, the Liberator Penetrator, the Plasma Shotgun, and even the Plas 101, as that weapon has been disappointing since its release. The charge rate on the Plas 101 should be faster to compensate for the larger hordes of enemies that can spawn, because right now it's challenging to take out multiple enemies when you're being rushed. So what weapons or stratagems would you like to see receive a buff? Post your responses in the comments below. Now, the developers not only have plans to improve the game, whether that's through requisition slips, buffs, or other means, but they're also planning to make changes to the Bile time. If I'm not mistaken, the Bile time's head is currently bugged, and sometimes hits do not register. However, as mentioned, they are going to make some changes. And Twinbeard confirmed this over on the Helldivers 2 Discord by saying, ragdolling will end, yes, we've already started, def be nerfed, if we want to use that term for that. It's way too much of that at the moment. Impaler Chargers and BT all have some issues we're looking into, speaking of which. So yeah, hopefully the BT is on the list, because man, it would suck if it's not. I know the head thing has been an issue for a while, at least I believe it still is. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong or right on that. But this right here is what we know so far. They plan on buffing weapons, introducing a few fixes for the Impaler. They're also going to do some changes with the, the BT. So there's a lot going on, and we'll see if this actually improves the game. If it doesn't, I'm sure I'll let you guys know. I give you guys my honest opinion every time, and I'll let you know if the updates have improved or not. With that information aside, we are now going to talk about the top 3 comments from the previous video. If you guys would like to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. The first comment is from Anubis007. Wouldn't mind a booster that allows one more stratagem. The second comment is by Sarb6625. Making the test server be highly restricted and NDA locked seems like a great way to make it absolutely useless, and you're not wrong there. I think that's a terrible idea, but that's their plans anyway, so we'll see how it turns out. And last but not least, we have Spartan in Virginia. I believe I've seen your comment before, but anyways, you said, known bugs in patch notes, the day after emote wheel is implemented, emote wheel still causes a fatal crash to desktop. If that happens, that would be insane. I mean, literally, I don't know what we would do at that point, but again, we'll find out if it does happen. If it does, I will come back to this comment. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and make sure you give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.